We begin with two Mangala shlokas, the one to our Vijñāna Bhairava, and the second one, which we did yesterday at 11:30, Vishranti. It is on the shlokas for recitation, page 2. First the Piruna. Piruna. Pirunam hapaya pradopavapaya kantasya hetustato ritani pratitascha piravarucha Ishontakasyantaka Pirambayatiya Svayogini-vahas Tasya Prabhu Bhairavo Vishvasmin Paranadikrit Vijayate Vijnana Rupa Then Vishranti. Vishranti Paramadivi Kalopati Vivachita Savikalpa Vikalpana Sarvasam Samvitalaya. Maybe for learning once more. Vishranti Paramadivi Kalopati Vivachita Savikalpa Vikalpana Sarvasa Samvitalaya. This term Vishranti, repose, rest, which is here identified with the Supreme Goddess. It has a lot to do with the dharana the dharanas with which we started yesterday, because that point between inhalation and exhalation, it is also called a point of rest. Even if you don't make any kumbhaka and any artificial holding of the breath, but with a very subtle awareness, you can experience there is a moment of rest. This constant fluctuation of breathing in and out, and it is like Gorakshanata says, like the ball play of the children, going here and here and there. And in between that pause, for a split second, it is a moment of rest. And that Vishranti is the Supreme Goddess, because it is there where she manifests herself. that we have from the very beginning, introductory part, that those moments which we experience in that center, Madhya, they are the divine energy. And they are so much full with energy. And that is why when you focus on them and slowly you get habituated to focus on these points, then there comes this experience of fullness, which the first dharana has 24 expressed it as an experience of fullness. And in the second, of course, it is an experience of emptiness. So these things are all connected, and Vishranti, being the Supreme Goddess, it's also a very good basis on which our meditation can rest, because we are resting on that energy, we are resting on that state of repose beyond these agitations which we normally have, and this dualistic thoughts, vikalpa. Now, before we proceed, just some hint at how we deal with these dharanas as we go along. So there are two possibilities. One is, and here philosophically, we are in the school of recognition. One is that when you hear or read such a dharana, you recognize something which you have already experienced. That is, of course, wonderful. You recognize a state which you have already experienced, but you didn't know what it means, you didn't know where to place it, and so on. So this is one way, just attentively see, how does it fit with my experience which I already have, or I had. So this is the recognition. And the other is, of course, the practice. And definitely we cannot practice 112 dharanas, and not even Swamiji, I don't think he practiced 112 dharanas. But you find that which is really suitable to you, and that will not be one. Because there is a whole progress, as Srilan Silban says. And you will see, as it unfolds, it's so beautiful, it becomes more and more subtle. That's why I want to reserve a lot of time for the last part, about 80 verses, which are very, very important. So it will not be just one practice, but one practice to start with. And then, as we go along, you find which next practice would be fitting on your path. So that's also something only you can feel it, what is fitting. There are maybe some dharanas which don't appeal to you at all, but still we are reading all of them, and we will try to give justice to all of them. But maybe in some cases we have to go a little faster, and in other cases a little slower. Now, the first group of dharanas was related to prana. And already the whole motive of the entire practice came to the fore, that is to practice on the center, Madhya. Madhya in anything, between anything. So Madhya doesn't mean only the center, like we have the central vein, we have the heart, and so on, but it means the in-between. See, some people even demonstrate with 2 fingers, focus on, not on the 2 fingers, but on the in-between. So Madhya means also that in-between, whether space or time or object or feeling or sense experience, and all that will come. Everything will come. Whatever is in our field of human experience, it can be used as a dharana. That's the whole beauty of this text. where some examples are given for very concrete practice, and then that is extended and universalized, and you can apply it to other situations as well, or to other experiences. But we have first to look at those examples which are very, I cannot say precise, because the way we read this text should not be at the mental level. See, then we find lots of contradictions, or this is not logical, and so on. It has to be at a more intuitive level, because the language is not the language of philosophy, language is not logical, and you find even in Swamiji's own interpretation, sometimes there's a contradiction, sometimes he explains like this, sometimes like that, and it means there's a variety of interpretations is possible, and we should not try to fix that with our mind or rationally to find one single meaning. Abhinavagupta says at the end of his commentary on the Paradishika Tantra, and he calls the verses of the Tantra called sutra, because they are so condensed. He says, a sutra is something which has an infinite number of meanings. So how do you deal with this infinite number of meanings? Of course, if you have a guru, he will tell you what is the meaning most fitting for you, but somebody finds another meaning, or this disciple finds another meaning from his experience. That is not excluded. You may find other meanings here. It's not at all excluded. So there's not that singularity or this rationality which you should expect, but we read the text more with the heart than with the rational mind. So this is the general part of the general approach to this text. So these first four dharanas, they were concerned with prana and different ways. And then it's not a mental logic, but it's a spiritual logic. Spirituality has its own logic. That from there you move to what we generally call Kundalini. But the term Kundalini does not occur, but the experience. So we come to verse 28. Now we can recite 28, 29, 30, 31. Maybe we can recite all this. Kirana Pasam Sukshma Sukshma Taratmikam Chintayitam Tvishat Kanti Shamyantim Bhairavudaya Utgachantim Taditrupam Pratichakram Kramat Kramam Utvamushtitrayam Yavat Tavatanti Mahudaya Kramadvadashakam Samyak Dvadashaksharapititam Stula Sukshma Parastitya Muktva Muktvan Tata Shiva. Did I say 31 or 30? Till 30, yes, okay. Meditate on the Shakti rising from Muladhara, which is luminous like rays of the sun and which gets subtler and subtler until it dissolves in Dvadashanta. Then the state of Bhairava will arise. Now the drawing has been wiped off, but I hope you have it in your mind. This Dvadashanta, which is meant here, is Brahmarantra. So, you see, neither Kundalini nor Shakti, nothing. It is only her quality is light, luminosity. She is full of light and radiance, and the rays are rising up, so it's a rising, and she is peaceful. So where is it? My translation is still not perfect in any way. Shanyanti, she is absolutely peaceful. And as she rises up with her rays, she becomes subtler and subtler. And this will be a feature of the rising energy in all these dharanas. The light, it must be a phenomenon of light, an experience of light, and a light which becomes subtler and subtler. Subtler, the subtlety, highest subtlety reaches at the place of Brahmarantra or Dvadashanta. They have all different ways of saying Dvadashanta, but they just love this word Dvadashanta, so it doesn't say chakra. Now, what the yogi has to do is to meditate, chintayet, so that Vijñāna Bhairava contains verbs expressing forms of meditation. And the whole problem, and we are not going into this, but everybody is conscious of the problem of translation. But every expression for meditation has other implications. So chint, and of course jnana is clear. Then you have, maybe some of you have this article on bhavana. Bhavana comes rarely as a noun, but often as a verb, bhavayet. You should contemplate. So we have very little choice in English, meditate, contemplate, reflect, and so on, but it's not really fitting. But chintayet, it is an active meditation. It is not only an awareness of something which is anyhow happening, it's chinta is some activities there. But still, there is a complementarity between something which happens and something which you do. So the energy rises. Already it is rising, because it's the nature of the energy. If you are pure, if you don't put any obstacles, physical, mental, and so on, then that energy will rise. There's no doubt about it. But what you have to do with it is to meditate on it, and by meditating on it, you make it more powerful also. Otherwise, things happen. See, even in our spiritual experience, things happen, we let them happen, we let them go. We don't make use of that opportunity which we are already experiencing. But then we have to become active and meditate on this process. Chintayet. And, I don't need to tell these very experienced yogis who are here. There are three kinds of Kundalini. Prana Kundalini, that is the Kundalini with, prana I don't like to translate as breath, but we can leave it as prana. Everybody can know what is meant. So prana kundalini, but still it starts from the physical element of breath, but then it becomes much, much more subtle and ever more subtle. So this is a case of prana kundalini. The second higher form of kundalini is chit kundalini, and that is a very high level of experience for which one has to be very qualified. But the normal or more frequent experience of kundalini is prana kundalini. And this is a case of prana kundalini. And that prana, of course, which becomes more and more subtle by rising. Now 29. Again, here there's no verb for meditation, but it is understood. This is the problem in this brevity of these two-line verses, that sometimes they just leave out the verb. You have to complement the verb. Utgachantim tadidrupa. Now this we had this uchara, everything with Vijñāna Bhairava is everything that is rising up. And utgachantim, she is rising up like lightning. Well, normally lightning doesn't rise up, but the simile of lightning means that fastness and the luminosity, because lightning is something that's very powerful light. So like lightning, as it moves upward from one chakra to the other until it reaches Dvadashanta. At the end is the great awakening. Now we have always to pay attention to the result of any dharana. In the previous dharana it was Bhairavodaya. Now Udaya, he loves to use this image of the rising sun for the rising energy. See, Bhairavodaya means the rising of Bhairava. And here it is Mahodaya, the great arising, the great awakening. So although they start from the prana, but it is already a step further, that with that speed of lightning and that tremendous light rising up, and at the end of this process there is the great awakening, Mahodaya. These words are so powerful, Bhairavodaya, Mahodaya, the great enlightenment, great awakening. Well, we have the habit of translating Bodhi in Buddhism by enlightenment, but actually it's awakening. And Udaya is the rising, actually has more to do with illumination, because it's a rising of the sun and of the inner sun, which is the Shakti. But the difference is here, pratichakram, kramat-kramam, also that it touches every chakra. Here the word chakra is used. Although it is very fast, like lightning, but still it touches every chakra. So it doesn't move from the bottom to the top without a stop. These are different variations, but it touches or it passes through every chakra in the order of the chakras. Now, when that power touches all the chakras, it gives the yogi a tremendous power. Then he has also access to the cities and so on. Of course, there are two different kinds of practices, those which lead to achievement of cities, and the other one, of course, which lead to mukti alone, only, directly to liberation. But when the chakras are passed, then it means it leads also to power, to cities. And again, what the yogi has to do here is to pay attention to this process. And as I said, not to let some experience pass without, and paying attention means a kind of meditation or contemplation, but there's no verb is mentioned here. It's just one can assume from the previous verse that it also means contemplate or meditate on this process as she rises like a lightning and touches all the chakras, passes through all the chakras. Now, 30. And now you have got the right copy of this Uchara of Om. This is from the book by André Padour, who is the greatest specialist on Mantra Shastra. And I recommend this book highly.
Who is that? The author?
Not everybody got? Sandeep?
Name of the author?
Oh, Padour. He has also translated one very important text. It was original in French, but now the English translation has come out, Yogini Hridaya, the heart of the yogini. It's a very beautiful, very important text, and to have reliable translations with a good commentary is so important. And so his book on Vaj, the concept of the word in selected Hindu Tantras. And then he has also a wonderful book, a very introductory book on Hindu Tantra, for those who know French, but the English will also come out eventually. And then this Yogini Hridaya. It's very recently come out in English translation. I recommend this beautiful text. So he has, so this Uchara of Om is from his book. Let us first read the translation and then go to this list. There are 12 successive centers associated with 12 letters, Akshara, on which one should concentrate in their gross, subtle, and supreme states, respectively. Transcending each center successively, in the end, Shiva is revealed. It's revealed, or it only says Antata Shiva. At the end, Shiva. Nothing but Shiva. Now, this is not Kundalini. There are different ways, I think I've mentioned already, of that uchara, that rising, one is with the prana and then with the mantra. And the mantra, which also you start with the bija mantra, like Om. Om is also the basic model, any bija mantra, ending in Anuswara. And then after passing through the sound level, then you arise up to through all these 12 stages. But here he says, associated with 12 letters, akshara here means vowels. So 12 vowels, there are actually 16 vowels in Sanskrit, but the 4 vowels which are napumsaka, which are not used at all, so they are 12, and there is every level of that arising is associated with one akshara, one vowel, yes. And the meditation or the concentration should be, does he have a verb here? Again, the verb for meditating is missing. You have to imagine that. You have to meditate on these 12 stages in their gross, subtle, and supreme way. So what does it mean? Gross means with the vowel. So you have some of these drawings also, no? That the aksharas associated with the chakras. And subtle, and here Swamiji takes the help of Abhinavagupta, because the text itself, those who have my German book on page 78, I give the interpretation of these 12 stages. Here Swamiji takes the help of Abhinavagupta by differentiating what is the gross level, the subtle level, and the subtlest level. So the gross level is with meditation on this aksharas, on this. So he said, first dhyana. Dhyana means with the vowels. Then the subtle level is Pandamanata. This is from Tantra Loka, he's taken the help, where the Abhinavagupta quotes the same verse and then gives that interpretation. Pandamanata, that means when the aksharas, these vowels, they are no longer in their gross form, but they become pure vibration. See, actually every word, every sound, every phoneme, if you lead it back to the subtle state, it's a state of vibration, Spandamanata. So it's pure vibration. That is a subtle level. And the supreme level is Jyotirupata. When from the akshara to the vibration, state of vibration, and then to the form of light. So these are the 3 levels, Stula, Sukshma, Para. Now for those who are not familiar with the Tantric texts, these 3 levels are found in every context. Stula, Sukshma, Para. Gross, subtle, supreme. It may be anything, in any context. And you always have to start from the gross, then move to the subtle, and then to the transcendent or to the supreme. So this is a very common tantric approach to reality, and that's why Stula is never left out. the gross level is never left out, but you have to proceed further to the subtle and then to the supreme. So these are 3 stages. So here it is first meditation with the sound, because vowels have a sound. Then on the vibration, the pure vibration which remains after the sound, and then the form of light, Jyoti Rupata. So it's a 3-fold meditation on these 12 stages. And Swamiji says it is a kind of lyre where one merges in the other. The gross merges in the subtle merges in the supreme. And then this beautiful expression, muktva antata Shiva. Muktva, mukti, we know, liberation. So the repetition muktva means that every stage you get a step, you liberate yourself from the previous stage and you become more free, muktva, liberate. Gradually or successively, you get liberated from the grossness and then even from the subtlety, and then you land in that supreme, which is Shiva, Para. It's not an easy meditation, but the description at least is more or less clear. And the 12 stages is what you have here. Of course, not exactly the same, because here it starts from Om. But if instead of Om, instead of you put the aksharas by the side, so this is taken from the book, the 12 aksharas, the 12 vowels, then it corresponds. So in the case of Om, it is A, Oma, Bindu, Ardha Chandra, Nirudini, Nada, Nadanta, Shakti, Vyapini, Samana, and Ummana. So these are also the stages of the rise of Kundalini. And here you have the corresponding, you don't worry about this duration and all that, which is given on the right side, but the chakra is given. And, well, the Devata also you're not concerned for the time being, but the chakra and the level of these stages are called in Sanskrit Kala. Kala of these 12 levels of the rise. Now, there are 2 ways, of course, this is all very complex, some starting from Muladhara and some starting from the heart. So, even in Buddhist meditation, there are some which are starting not from Muladhara but from the heart. So, here, starting from the heart, throat, palate, and Bindu is that point of light between the eyebrows. And we have already talked about Nirodika. Nirodini is the same, who is placed in the palate and who is a kind of obstacle for those who are not perfect yogis and who want to ascend and they cannot pass through, and that this is a kind of limitation. But on the other hand, it is also avoiding those yogis who have already transcended to fall down below that Nirodika or Nirodini. So there's no exact location. Nada means literally sound, but it is a very subtle sound. It's that vibration only, and which is located here. Actually, Nada, Nadanta, they are all on the forehead, and Nadanta, the end of sound. So where that vibration ends. And then Shakti, Vyapini, Samana and Unmana, Unmana is above the Brahmarandha. Okay, and this will come again, but you can keep this scheme whenever it's a question of the 12 stages, you have a basis to refer to. Well, I have said it is a gradual, this muktva, I have given great importance to muktva. It's a gradual liberation from the gross to the subtle muktva, in which, and this is the typical tantric spirituality, nothing is left out, everything is included, from the gross to the most subtle, up to the level of Shiva. Now we have not recited 31. No. So 31, 32. Maybe 31, 32, 33. Daya Puryasu Mudhantan Bhangtva Pukshipa Setuna Nirvikalpa Manakritva Sarvodvi Sarvagodkama Shikipakshaischittarupay Mandalai Shunya Panchakam Dhyayato Nuttare Shunye Pravesho Hridaye Pravet Idrishena Kamenaiva Yatra Kutra Pichintana Shunye Kuti Paripatre Svayam Lina Varatada. Having filled the body up to Mudhanta is again Brahmarandra, with the same energy of breath, Taya, and having crossed it like a bridge. Now, this translation is based on Swami Lakshman's interpretation. By contracting the eyebrows and making one's mind free from thoughts, one becomes all-pervading in the highest state. Now, this is a very mysterious dharana where Lilian Silburn says that the tradition must have got lost, because that one term, Prukshepa Setu, is a very mystical term. And the way Swamiji interprets it is a bit simplified. See, he is my master and I respect all his interpretations, but maybe Silburn is right, that there must have been some more mystical meaning to this term, which must have got lost, because it must be more than concentrating on the Bhumatya. It must be more than that. See that energy, Taya, but the same energy, and filling the body up to the Brahmarandras. It is a complete experience of fullness, filling. But the method is not clear. Prukshepa Setuna. Now, Kshepa is from the root kship, to throw, and also to fix or to concentrate. In some of the dharanas, this verb kship is used. Kship means throw. In English we say throwing a glance. Throw in the sense that very quick, something very quick. It's not a slow contemplation or something, but something very quick, fixing your attention very quickly on something is kship. So prukshepa, setu, it's a very difficult term. Setu is both a bridge and a dam. If you walk through a rice field in India, there are between the divisions of the fields, there are paths on which you can walk and, without getting into the water. They are also called setu, because they are both blocking the water, and they also can be used as a pathway or as a bridge. So setu has these two meanings. Now, this point, prumatya, the word ajna, which comes in the Hatha Yogic text, is not used at all in this text, but always prumatya, the center between the eyebrows, which, of course, there is a kind of either bridge or dam, or it is prumatya setu. But what happens actually by this kshepa? So Swamiji says, by you concentrate on the center of the eyebrows, fixing one pointedness between the two eyebrows. Then what happens? Murdantam apuri. You fill your whole body up to Brahmarandhra with this breath, and panktva, after doing that, the movement of prana shakti is suspended for the time being. It is only one pointedness. So we are not completely satisfied by this interpretation. What he means is that, in the sense of a dam, that it stops the breath from proceeding. See, the breath only moves up to this point, and then it is stopped by this setu. But then he says, you have to keep your mind attentive on the state between the eyebrows, one-pointedness, do not move even for half a second. This is prukshepa setuna. Now what does Silburn, where is Silburn? Well, definitely there is this movement of filling, that the pranic energy is filling the body. This is clear. Taya puryasu, up to from bottom to top. That filling, puryasu. And then and she says, I must say, Lilian Silburn was not only a scholar, she was also not only a practitioner, but she was also a mystic. She had experience. So many things can only be understood by experience. But of course she was a disciple of Swami Lakshman, and she got her interpretation from him. But in some point she differed. But this is also natural. In a guru-disciple relationship, you don't have to agree with every single interpretation. You may also find something else. she says this practice can only be transmitted from master to disciple, and because it is not without danger for somebody to practice without a guru. This filling the whole body up to Brahmarandra, and then by, yes, that Swamiji also says, by contracting the eyebrows, by contraction of the eyebrows, which makes a kind of bridge here. And, well, this, anybody who knows, who is in the Indian tradition, if your guru gives you a tika here with pressure, it has this effect. It has this effect. That pressing on this Bhumatya, but by a master who has the power. And then it has that effect. The yogin breaks through this point, through this bridge, so that no bondage links him to the previous phases. So there are many more things are implied, which, and the word setu, and the double meaning of setu, bridge, and dam, she also says, it is a passage moving beyond that. The vital energy of the inferior centers, which are canalized in, of course, this is a point of concentration of all the nadis. He traverses, he passes through this bridge and penetrates in the universal space, because you have to look at the result of this. If it is only concentration on the Bhumatya, this is not sufficient. You cannot reach that universality, because he says Sarva Urdhve Sarvaga Utkama. He realizes a state of all pervasiveness. So it has to go beyond just only concentration between the eyebrows. Sarva Urdhve, above everything, beyond, it becomes all-pervading in the highest state. And this all-pervading, if you do it on the scheme of the 12 stages, it is, of course, at the stage of Umana. But it's not, it doesn't refer to these 12 stages here, but it's a different practice. So I can only leave it open, and there are still things which are mysterious and which we cannot clearly interpret, and this is definitely one of them. But the result is becoming all-pervasive in the highest state. It means it is really a very high mystical practice. Sarvaga, Sarvodve, Sarvaga, Udgama. Sarvaguta. So this is part of our exercise here, also to not be able to solve all the problems or all the questions which have already been discussed and attempted by not only scholars and yogis, and we are making an effort at understanding and putting it into practice, whatever is possible. Now comes one of my favorites. Shikipakshai. By meditating on the 5 voids of the senses, which are like the various colors, various colors of the peacock's feathers, the yogi enters in the heart of the absolute void. Such a beautiful verse, but you have to, in this brevity, you have to understand what is that connection. First of all, the word senses is not used, but it's understood. And the whole tradition has understood this 5 means the 5 senses. And the simile or the metaphor or the symbol he uses is the eye of a peacock's feather. So what is the connection? First of all, mandala. Mandala means the circles. They are kind of circular shape, and there are 5 shades of colors which become darker in the center. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, more or less 5 shades of these circles of the peacock's feather. And they are, it's a comparison with the 5 senses. See what happens when we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, and so on and so on. With every sense perception, first it is beautiful, you have all these beautiful colors and sounds and so on and so on. But if you go into the depth of it, in the end you land in a void, in a state of void. And that is compared to the peacock's feather because the most inner part of it is dark. It is black. And you move from the outer colors into that inner darkness. So it's a symbol which is very multi-layered. Every symbol is multi-layered. One aspect is that the senses, they perceive all this beauty and but that is not all. By perceiving, and we are talking of a yogi, we are not talking of an ordinary person who gets lost in the sense perception. But the yogi, and you also know when you are practicing meditation and so on, you go out in nature or you go and you hear some beautiful music, you know that becomes much more intense. But at some point that intensity leads you to a state of emptiness, to that center which is void. So it's no longer, you don't have an object. Now this is an object, but then that object disappears into that voidness. And so for me, this verse is also one of the verses which makes a bridge between the aesthetic experience and the mystical experience. Because the mystic or the yogi, he moves from the beauty of the experience of all the senses, but he cannot stop there. He has to move on, and he moves on and he lands into that emptiness and that void. So it's a movement from the aesthetic experience to the mystical experience, which is one of the great contributions of Kashmir Śaivism. But here, of course, we are at the very origins of the tradition. See, these mandalas, a mandala, of course, it also has the meaning of a ritual mandala. See, from where all these beautiful, the Tibetans, they make these beautiful mandalas. This is a natural mandala. And those are ritual and mandalas created with all this colorful powder and so on and so on. But in the center is void. And then what he does, the yogi, Dhyayatu anuttare shunye. By experiencing that void in the center of that sense experience, from there he has to go to meditation on that ultimate void, anuttara shunya. This very powerful expression. Now we come to a whole series, which will come again and again in a whole text, of meditations on emptiness, on shunya. And it starts with such a beautiful example. Bhattyayatu anuttare shunye, meditating on the supreme, on the ultimate voidness, starting from the beauty and entering inside the darkness and so on, and then he meditating on the supreme void. And the result is praveshu hridaye bhavet. It's beautiful. He gets entry into the heart. And the heart, of course, it's such an important symbol in the whole of Kashmir Śaivism. It is the center of consciousness. It's not only the heart chakra, but it's the very center of consciousness and the locus of the divine and so on. We come in verse 49 to another one of my favorite dharanas about meditation on the heart. So if he meditates on this ultimate transcendent void, he gets entry into the heart. Dhyayatu anuttare shunye praveshu hridaye bhavet. Well, here I have translated that the yogi enters in the heart of the absolute void, but actually either this dhyayatu can be taken with the first part, dhyayatu, shunya panchakam and so on, but I think I'm wrong. What have I done in the German? Swami, would you say dhyayatu is related to Shunya Panchakam or to Anuttara Shunya? Dhyayatu. By meditating on the 5 voids of these 5 circles, etc. On the Anuttara Shunya. Both, yeah, this is the point. The dhyayatu, meditating, can be applied both to these 5 voids of the 5 senses and also meditating on the supreme void, Anuttara Shunya. And since this is locative, Anuttara Shunya hridaye can be also related, meditating on he gets entry into the heart, which is the supreme void. Anuttara Shunya hridaye, locative. So here you have this multi-layered meanings of, which is very typical of tantric language, but sometimes it is more expressive, and this is a typical, beautiful example. How this void, this shunya, it is nothing negative. On the contrary, it's you enter, that is the heart. It is the center. And the center, like here the center, it's not ugly. It is dark, but it is beautiful. It's a dark inner core of the feather, of the mandala. So there's nothing negative associated with shunya, but it is precisely that center, that heart, and that supreme void, anuttara shunya. We have done 33, I think. Idrishena kramena eva yatra kutra pichintayet. Now, whenever the verse uses that yatra and yatra kutra and so on, wherever, whenever. So after a group of dharanas comes a kind of generalization. See, these are just examples given, but whenever you put your awareness on something, on what? Just examples. So he gives 3 examples here. Now, in the same way, idrishena kramena, what does it mean? In the same way. Swamiji says, with one-pointed awareness. If one concentrates one's awareness on anything, yatra kutrapi, chintana. See, I see the different words for meditation, contemplation, etc. So chintana. We had it as a verb, chintayet, and here chintana. So chintana is an active meditation. And what are the 3 examples given? Shunya, Kudya, Paripatre. Now here Shunya means not emptiness in the abstract, but concrete, anything empty. And there will be many meditations on empty things. So here it's interpreted as a plain something empty. What does he say? Yeah, the first shunya probably refers to the sky. That the voidness, emptiness of the clear sky, because it's not an abstract voidness here. It is a concrete example. Kudya is a wall. Now you have a blank wall, and later on there is one dharana with a rock, a blank rock. There are no trees and no plants and nothing. You just look at it and your mind gets, the thoughts get dissolved. Sukutya, this is a wall, empty space, a wall, and what is paripatre? This parapatra. So the interpretation given, patra means literally a vessel, but then it means a person, and especially it means a worthy person, and it means an actor, because the actor is also a vessel of the role he plays, so he's a patra also. And paripatre means a very high, worthy disciple. It's interpreted like this. See, when the guru has in front of him a disciple who is completely open, and then something happens, some transference can happen. So, interesting thing is here, it's a guru's meditation, because it's a guru who meditates on the disciple, not the other way around. Of course, the disciple meditates on the guru because he's definitely worthy, but here on a worthy disciple. So it's a practice of the guru. Then, by this kind of meditation, Swayam Lena Varaprada, the result is that this energy, see, whatever feminine, everything is feminine, it means always it's a Shakti. It's always the Shakti. She will merge by herself and bestow grace. She is Varaprada. She bestows grace. So this is one of these verses which gives you the chance to apply these meditations on emptiness to any other empty object. And of course, emptiness will come again and again and again. Many, in the body, outside, in the sky, in the pot, in so many possible emptinesses. But here, you can also apply it to any. Suddenly you see something empty and you fix your concentration there and and that energy will merge, Swayam Lena. The word laya also comes often, laya bhavana, that dissolution or dissolving or merging. And she who is Varaprada, who is the bestower of grace. So in both these verses, which are the beginning of the practices on Shunya, that Shunya has a very beautiful connotation. It's nothing, some people think it is something frightening, but it's very attractive, it's beautiful. It leads you to the entering into the heart of the absolute void. It leads you to the grace-bestowing energy. So contemplation on the void, so the Buddhists are completely right. No, because they are often misunderstood. Yes. Maybe two more verses and then 34, 35. Kapalantamanonyasya tishtam militalochana kamena manasodatyat lakshayet lakshyamutamam madhyanadi madhyasamstha Visasutra Bharupaya Tyatantavyo Maya Devya Taya Deva Prakashate. Again, two practices of meditation on the void, on the emptiness. One is inside the body, in the skull. And there is another, it will come later, that when the whole body is, of course, the emptiness within the body, but especially the skull, as if the skull is pervaded by outside, empty space. By fixing one's mind on the inner space of the skull and sitting motionless with closed eyes, gradually, by the stability of the mind, manasodatyat, one attains the supreme goal. Fixing the mind, those of you who know the process of ritual, there is nyasa. Nyasa, by which you apply mantras to the body to sanctify or to divinize the body. So this verb nyasya is used so that it's a kind of projection, projecting your mind in the inner space of the skull and sitting with motionless with eyes closed. So concentrating on that inner space of the skull. And gradually, so it is a gradual process, by firmness of the mind, one reaches the supreme goal, lakshayat lakshyam uttamam. So it is not a very difficult meditation. It's not very difficult. If the skull, in any case, the whole body will be considered, the whole body is like a pura, is like a castle or like a temple, of course we'll come to that. And the whole cosmos is contained in the body, and especially the skull contains the sky. And these are very ancient, already Vedic concepts that microcosm. So the whole macrocosm is also in the body, etc. So here, closing of the eyes is obviously recommended because one has to focus on the inner space of the skull. Now 35, here become the typical Kashmiri touch. Matya Nari Matya Samsta Visasutra Bharupaya Tyata Antavyomaya Devya Taya Deva Prakashate. Now it's a meditation on the Matya Nari. The word Sushumna, I think, does not even occur in the Vijñāna Bhairava. Only Matya Nari, the central vein. And again, it's a meditation on the inner space in that central vein, which is compared to a stem of a lotus stalk. And if anybody of you has eaten a good Kashmiri dish, they are eating something called nadru. Nadru is lotus stalk, and then you see in the lotus stalk there are holes, very fine fibers, of course, and then there are holes. So the comparison is that this Matya Nari has a very subtle inner space, like a lotus stalk. It's subtle like the fiber of a lotus stalk, Pisa Sutra. Dhyata anta vyomaya, meditating on the space within it. Through the goddess, God is revealed. Dhyata anta vyomaya devya taya deva prakashate. That inner space is, again, it's a Shakti. Of course, we know that Sushumna, it's the place of the Shakti. But here, he doesn't speak of Kundalini and so on. He speaks just of Madhya Nadi, that symbolism, and that fixing one's concentration on that inner space. So we have the two inner voids or inner spaces, the heart and the Madhya Nadi, the central vein. And just meditating on that central emptiness or space, Vyoman is again a cosmic space, but it's also the inner space. So there are two meditations on the space within, empty space within the body. One in the Kapala, the skull, and the other in the Madhya Nadi. And by that, goddess of that inner space, God is revealed. Deva Prakashate. Because, until we come back to the very beginning, that every practice or every experience, every state is a state of the Shakti, and through the Shakti, Shaivi Mukhami Huchate, and Shiva is attained through the Shakti. So by that goddess of that inner space in the central vein, Deva means Shiva is revealed. So these are not, these kind of meditations with the body, and they can be easily practiced. They're not so difficult and not so obscure like some of the verses are a little obscure. So I think we end here, and if you have questions, we have to decide. Either we can have a question at the end of the session, or we can also, because that afternoon time is a little bit wasted, I'm sorry to say, we could have a little discussion at that time where you collect your questions. What would you prefer?
Darf ich eine Frage in Deutsch stellen? Die gleiche für mich, die man anders übersetzen kann.
The listeners who will hear this series later won't have a clue what you said.
Etwas lauter sprechen. Etwas
Please
lauter.
translate.
Es geht immer darum, gedankenfrei zu werden und so weiter, oder? Wenn die Gedanken zur Ruhe kommen, dass dann das wirkliche Bewusstsein entstehen kann oder so weiter. Und irgendwie ist doch meine Frage, aber braucht es nicht auch ein gewisses Streben, ein Wollen, ein Gefühl der Hingabe oder irgendwas in diese Richtung? Oder sollen auch alle Gefühle und alle Streben, alle Hingabe und so weiter auch zur Ruhe kommen? Das ist meine Frage.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand exactly.
Ob nur die Gedanken zur Ruhe kommen sollen oder ob auch das Streben zur Ruhe kommen soll, der Wille zur Hingabe zur Ruhe kommen soll.
No.
Und die Gefühle. Whether what you're trying to, may I
Yes.
I might be wrong, but what I understand is he's asking, does it have to be a mind free of thought, completely empty of thought? Does that include the feelings and the ambitions and whatever else?
Yeah, right. Yes. Yes. I mean,
The efforts.
see, every practice is complete. If the text says every practice is complete, and the result is such a high level result, it means the whole person is involved. Body, senses, mind, everything. Everything is involved. That nothing is left out. So if that focusing on one practice, it brings all your energies into focus. So nothing is left out. Now the question is, as I said, where do you feel that you can focus all your energies? Some may be looking as if they're just a partial practice, but it is not. Because the more you advance, and that will be clear also in the text itself, the more even every little experience can become the starting point of the total experience. And that's the beauty. You know, the most famous dictum in Kashmir Śaivism is Sarvam Sarvatmakam. Everything is related to the whole. Or every part is related to the whole. So you take any part, say even a grain of sand or a blade of grass and so on, and if you are in that state, in that yogic experience, and that part will take you to the absolute. This is the whole beauty of that tantric spirituality. I don't know whether I've answered your question. This mic. Where's the mic? Mic. नहीं इधर yes.
Just to
No, it's okay. Please.
Okay, so just in terms to understand completely the practice prescribed in the Tantras in the Vijñāna Bhairava, when you say the whole of the person, you mean rather than the concentration as understand and the ekagrata, meaning more like an awareness, more spontaneous rather than effort.
Rather than?
Then like an effort, like a stressful effort, which will mean more spontaneous awareness rather than effort. Is that what it means when it refers to awareness? That would be my question.
Yes. Well, Swamiji loves the word one-pointed awareness. One-pointed awareness, and whatever you're doing, or whatever you're practicing. So, while in yoga you have ekagrata also, but that one-pointed awareness and all the practices presuppose the capacity to put your awareness in make it more and more subtle. So in several of these verses already we had sukshma, sukshmata, muktva, and so become more and more subtle. Otherwise you can't even understand, you can't even apprehend what is going on here. So the whole process has to be through a very subtle awareness. Otherwise, you can't catch the point between breathing in and breathing out. You can't catch any points, the center, etc. And that subtle awareness, that is what we have to train ourselves. That there's no particular, it's just by meditating, by centering within, by being more and more introverted, and then you will be capable to enter into this. See, otherwise if anybody coming from the street, you give him such a tarana and say, what is this? It already presupposes a subtle mind, even body also, and all the things you're doing in Hatha Yoga, making the body more subtle, more flexible, not flexible, but more transparent and more, a patra. So this is the beautiful word, patra, making a vessel. Make our body, mind a vessel, an empty vessel to receive that and to be able to contain that nectar. Every time it is said that nectar of that, at the end this is Amritam Uttamam. All these teachings are supreme nectar. So to contain that nectar, you shouldn't have holes in your... Swamiji had a beautiful comparison, said, if you lose your awareness, it's like carrying water in a basket. The water will... So you have to carry that, contain that nectar in an empty vessel, which is your body, your mind, and everything. That's the only condition. I think this is something very, very general usefulness. Then, well, that time in the afternoon, of course, you can use it for your studies or discussion. But if there is any wish to have a discussion group with me, I am also ready in the afternoon.
You said there are 3 types of kundalini. Prana kundalini, Chit kundalini, or what?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mention the third one. That is para kundalini. Now, prana kundalini, Chit kundalini, and para kundalini. Now, para kundalini is the transcendent, which is very rarely experienced, only by very high yogis. Very high yogis experience Parakundalini. But Chit Kundalini is already, if we reach Chit Kundalini, it's already something. But Prana Kundalini is accessible to everybody.
In this Uchara of Om, you started from the heart chakra, right? You started from heart chakra, the Brahmana.
Yes.
And in the book, you started from Jnana, from the below the Muladhara.
Yes. The 2 processes are there. Yes.
So which is to follow?
No. See, this is not exclusive. Every practice is complete in itself. Either you start from the heart or you start from Muladhara. It's not a contradiction. There are just 2 ways. Either Muladhara or from the heart. And that also, the practice you're choosing depends on your own inclination, your own experience, etc. Whether you start from Muladhara or from the heart. It's not, none of these, you think they are excluding each other, not at all. Each stands in itself, has a value in itself, and brings a very high result. But they are not contradictory. You can't say that why it should be here Muladhara and then heart. There's no contradiction. This is the richness of these dharanas.
I'd like to ask once again about the 3 kundalinis.
Mike.
I'd like to ask once again about the kundalini. The prana and the chitta kundalini, that's clear to me. What does one understand under para kundalini?
By?
Para kundalini.
Yes. Well, I hope it will come. Where the stula sukshma para is always this trait. Stula, that which starts from prana, it is stula. Sukshma, the subtle, it is related to chit consciousness. And para to para, of course. But what does it actually mean? It is such a high experience. If you read some of this, what these great yogis have written about their experiences, or many they have not written, but they have had the experience. And as he says in the very beginning, akatya, it is actually indescribable. But that there is a level beyond sukshma. That is definite. But how to describe it and how those yogis who have experienced it, and the text will also say something, but it's mainly on the basis of what we can experience. This is prana and chit. But if I find any text, I will give you. Yes.
I just want to say, not as a teacher, but as quoting the teacher, Yoga Sutra says something somewhere about the states of consciousness are their own definition. In response to what she just asked, you can't say it, right? You can't find Kundalini, it has to be its own definition. The experience, that pada experience is its own definition, is that correct? There are no words anyway. But I had a question. Okay. My question is, you talk about Madhya Nadi, fixing one's concentration on the central vein. And sometimes it seems like it's synonymous with Sushumna. But here in 35, you said, this is not Sushumna. So when you speak about...
Where says it's not Sushumna?
It is? Or did you say that and I misunderstood you?
No.
It is Sushumna. It's always Sushumna.
It is Sushumna.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Definitely it is Sushumna. There's only one Madhya Nadi.
Let me confuse you all.
No, definitely.
Just it would be nice because the book we can read in the book that there's a kind of an effort to classify the different dharanas as upayas, different upayas. And I would like to understand what is how it happens. So what is the structure behind it?
Yes. No, this is very important, and I will address it in the coming. It's not an answer like this, but I will address it as we go along. Yeah, definitely. Yes. I think.